Let me ask you a question about the trade deal that we're going to see in October. Will it be detailed, do you think, or will it just be a few sheets of A4?
Well, the Barnier tactic all the way along is to keep stringing it out. He's very good at that. Interesting, I thought, the way that Northern Ireland wasn't discussed at the summit last week, but is pushed forward into June. Look, we are going to get, of course we're going to get a free trade deal on goods. They sell us 80 billion quid's worth a year more than we sell them. On services, we're not going to get a complete free trade deal, no.
But will MPs actually know what they're voting on?
That's a very good question, actually, because people say the public didn't know what they were voting on. Whether MPs understand it as well either, I don't know. I mean, look, I think the big picture is that a year from today, we will leave the Treaty of Rome and the subsequent treaties, and we will be an independent country. And I think that, perhaps today of all days, is the thing that we need to sort of focus on. So we are going to leave the European Union. I personally can't stand some of the concessions that have been made, but in the big historical shape of things, I think it's pretty clear now that Labour are not going to push for a second referendum. I feared for a bit they might. But I felt with what Corbyn did to Owen Smith, and I felt just listening to Emily Thornberry and others. So I think we're going to leave the European Union this time next year. There'll be a heck of a lot to sort out. And you know what? We will be arguing details of Brexit for the next 2 or 3 general elections.
Right. Do you agree with Nigel Farage that we will leave next year? We'll get a trade deal with goods, but perhaps not services?
Well, what people in Wakefield are telling me is that what they were told in the referendum has not been delivered. Control over their borders, which we're not going to get anytime soon. Control over the money when we're going to be paying into the budget for Nigel's pension till 2064, if he lives that long. Maybe.
I'm on a UK parliamentary scheme, same as you, actually. But hey, there we are.
But it's and the third thing is leaving the European Court of Justice. None of those things are going to happen. They're worried about the cost of their shopping going up. They're worried about the cost of their holidays going up. And Nigel wants to keep us focused on the big picture, because when you look at the small picture, UK businesses will be sat outside the rooms where decisions are taken that affect their goods, their chemicals, their customs, and these are going to be big problems for us. And when Nigel airily says we won't get a deal on services, that's British jobs that are going to be lost. That's going to be a problem.
But that's going to be serious, isn't it? Nigel Farage doesn't think we'll get a deal that includes services.
Nigel Farage, as wise as he undoubtedly is not the definitive position on what will or will not happen at the end of the Brexit process.
So will we get a deal that includes services?
I feel very confident we'll get a deal on services, because an awful lot of those manufacturing companies in the European Union actually raise finances in the City of London. They solve business disputes through our British legal system, using our British law firms. So we are and will always be a close economic partner of the European Union. I do think we will get a good trade deal that works for us and works for them, because that is the pragmatic answer. It's the obvious and pragmatic answer.
All right, how much detail do you think will be put in front of MPs like yourself in October? The Conservative peer George Bridges, who was one of the ministers actually in charge of Brexit until recently, has said it'll be a few pages of meaningless waffle, not a bridge to a clear destination, but a gangplank into thin air. Is he right?
Of course,
yes,
I disagree with him fundamentally on that. What we will see,
in October,
there have been so many predictions of the things that won't happen, that are unachievable. We'll never get agreement on the money. We'll never get agreement on EU nationals. We'll never get agreement on British nationals. We'll never get agreement on this. And each and every time we've been told what we will never be able to achieve, the Prime Minister has come back and has one after another achieved all those so-called unachievable things. But that's not the answer
to my question. What I'm trying to get to is what is going to be put in front of MPs in October? What will be in the deal? Will it be a few sentences, a broad outline? How much detail will there be for you guys to make a reasonable assertion of whether you want to support it?
Well, the amount of detail in it is, of course, entirely dependent on what the negotiated position is between ourselves and the EU. So I cannot give you a definitive answer. Indeed, neither can George Bridges give you a definitive answer either, because it is part of the negotiation. But I have no doubt there will be enough detail for members of Parliament to make a serious assessment and decision about it. And if the Labour Party, Labour front bench, are saying that they're definitely going to agree with whatever comes before us...
We have not said that.
No, your Foreign Secretary says.
No, she's not in charge of that. I spoke to Keir Starmer about this yesterday.
Our shadow Foreign Secretary said that...
So Keir Starmer has been very clear that when it comes back to Parliament in October, and I'm very concerned about the nature and content of what will be in it, that all options will be on the table, including extending Article 50, including potentially another referendum, and including us us rejecting that deal. So those three options, all options are still on the table in October.
Not according to the Shadow Foreign Secretary, Emily Thornberry, who seemed to clarify Labour's position on behalf of all of you. She said the difficulty is going to be with the meaningful vote in October. What it is we are going to be agreeing on. We have our 6 tests. If you hold up blah, blah, blah to the 6 tests, it will probably pass it. So Labour will probably vote for the deal.
Well, collective responsibility applies in the Shadow Cabinet, and I've heard from Keir last night that a completely different position, and I hope that that position will be clarified.
Whose position do we believe?
I hope that Keir's position, because Keir's is the sensible position, we should not be signing up to a Tory Brexit deal in October, and we shouldn't be saying that now when we haven't even seen the terms of a deal.
Why do you think Emily said that?
I think she said it. She was tired at the end of a meeting. It was a throwaway remark. I think it's deeply unfortunate, and I think we need to be absolutely crystal clear on this, that there is a significant number of MPs across all parties in the House who are not intending to just nod this through.
I think Labour being
let's
crystal
be
clear
about one thing. There are about 4.5 million people.
Oh, you've been pretty muddy.
The
Tories and UKIP have been pretty muddy.
4.5 million people voted for Jeremy Corbyn last June who had voted Brexit the previous year. And if the Labour Party was to sign up to an extension of Article 50 or to support a second referendum, it would cost you the next election.
It's a vote on the final deal, Nigel. It's not a second referendum.
And I think Jeremy Corbyn has recognised that without Brexit voters, Labour cannot win the next election. That's the reality of this. And, you know, we can get stuck in the weeds over the complexity of trade deals, but here's the reality. Brexit is what we make it. We will be as good through Brexit as our government wants. And
hang on,
only 15% of the global economy is in the Eurozone. There's a great big exciting world out there.
Right.
We can give people cheaper food, cheaper bras, cheaper shoes. It's a massive opportunity.
So you say, but actually when it came to winning over those Labour voters, those Labour Leave voters, UKIP didn't manage it. So, I mean, maybe those Labour voters think they'll stick with Jeremy Corbyn. They know he's a Eurosceptic, really, and they will stay there.
It depends on how Labour behave over the final vote and what they want.
Can I just ask also about the government? Because doubts about whether the government will be able to achieve a comprehensive trade deal that might include services too. I mean, James is right to a certain extent that she has, Theresa May, managed to get through the divorce bill and the divorce settlement and agreed a transition. Why couldn't there be a comprehensive deal that does include services?
Because Barnier does not want that, and he's made it very clear. Look, we'll be told there's a deal on financial services. It won't be complete. But you know what? The European single market on financial services isn't complete now. We still can't retail insurance services in Germany or whatever else it may be. Look, the most important thing to come out of this is, with or without a deal, when you talk about financial services, the City of London is still, in the rankings this week, the #1 financial capital in the world, and Frankfurt is 20th. And that's what you need to know.
Let's go back just briefly before we end this discussion on the detail that's going to go before MPs. Will it say specifically what our future immigration system is going to be in that deal that is put to the Commons?
Well, our UK immigration system will be set by UK government. That's the whole point.
But the government
Brexit
said there would be an immigration system, a new immigration system post-Brexit. So will we know what type of visa system there'll be? Will it continue with the point system? Will we know that in October?
Well, the British government, the UK government, will define the UK immigration system, and actually what we nationally decide to do in terms of visas or permanent right to remain or whatever will be a domestic decision for the UK politicians, who will be held accountable at the general election, which is how it's meant to be.
All right.
Some of those border guards, the Home Secretary told the Home Affairs Committee, will be posted on the border in Wales, which implies that preparations for a no-deal Brexit include a border in the Irish Sea, which we have explicitly been told will not happen. Squaring the circle on Northern Ireland is still, I think, the biggest difficulty that the Prime Minister faces, and we'll see in June if she can do it.
Well, we'll return to that issue, of course, in programmes in the future. Thank you very much, Adam, for popping over to see us. Nigel, you're staying here. So, we know that barring anything unexpected, Britain will leave the EU in a year's time, March the 29th, 2019, at 11 p.m. So how will you be celebrating or perhaps mourning the event? Let's remind you how some people felt after the referendum back in 2016.
It's a victory for ordinary people.
the British people have made a very clear decision to take a different path.
This country's sinking because there's too many people coming in.
Our future's kind of thing taken away.
And we're joined in the studio by two people who will be marking Brexit Day in very different ways. It's Lucy Harris from the group Leavers of London and Madalena Kay, otherwise known as EU Supergirl. Welcome to both of you. Lucy, how will you be celebrating?
Oh, gosh, a flyover? Something like that? That would be great. No, my group will be having a massive party, but we're debating whether it should be this time next year or the 23rd of June. I think it should be the 23rd of June because that was decided by the people, not by politicians.
OK, so you're still rang about when you should have the big party. How will you be marking the date next March?
Well, it's actually my birthday today.
Happy birthday.
So I'll be celebrating my birthday and we'll be celebrating it with EU Superhero Day because we are going to stop Brexit before it happens and we're going to make the 29th of March a celebration of everyone that has achieved that aim.
How are you going to stop it between now and then?
We are going to demand a vote on the final deal and we are going to get the public to support our campaign to stop Brexit and actually save Britain from this travesty that's going to just damage our economy and our society for decades to come.
Right, that's going to rather dampen your celebrations. Obviously, if that happens, you won't be celebrating at all.
Well, it's not happening, so my party's still on. Everyone's invited, including Madeline. She's definitely invited to come along.
Oh, God, I thought you were inviting Nigel then.
Who knows?
I like a party. Don't worry about that.
No,
well,
you
we
don't
throw the
say.
best parties, us Leavers. So, yeah, it's going to be a great turnout, and I think it's something to look forward to. I mean, we're going into the big world now as the UK, and we've got so much to look forward to. New trade deals, new friendships. It's an amazing opportunity, if anything.
Apart from maybe a drink, how will you be celebrating?
Well, I'm absolutely with the 23rd of June idea. I think it should be, once Brexit's happened, that should be a national holiday. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? We can celebrate the fact we've become a normal country again. Because normal countries make their own laws and determine their own future.
Right, I see. Let's see how our guests might be celebrating or marking the day. Andrea Leadsom, your colleague, Leader of the House, says, tweeted, 1 year to go and I still wake up punching the air each morning, #Brexit. Do you do that?
Let me think.
Well, not for too long.
No,
you
no,
don't.
I don't. No, look, I've always said that the big event with regard to Brexit was that referendum results morning, and from that point of time onwards, it becomes a process rather than an event. And we are in the process of detaching ourselves from the European Union. We're in the process of signing up trade deals, both with the European Union and more widely. And what we will see, actually, is this will all be normalised. We discuss immigration policy, that will just be normal. We discuss trade policy, that will be just normal domestic policy. It will just become part of normal political life, and that's what I welcome.
You're shaking your head,
Well,
Mary.
what the Treasury slides show us that Brexit is going to cost between 1% and 10% of our gross domestic product. So it's not going to be, a great new dawn. It's going to be austerity for decades, and that's nothing to celebrate. But I'm with Madalena. I think we need to look at the terms. We need to see, are we swapping our three-course meal in the EU for a packet of crisps in the brave new Brexit world? And if we are, people have the right to change their mind. That is a democracy, and I'll be baking a cake and eating it because staying in the EU is the only way for us to do that.
Right. I mean, David Lammy, your colleague, said in a recent comment in the New European, I know some people are switching their savings into euros, but it's a bit like Game of Thrones. We can't escape this. Winter is coming. Does he need to get over it?
I think it's a free country. People are allowed to express their opinions. For every 17 people that voted for Brexit, 16 people voted against it. There are many Leavers who now regret their votes. They know it's complicated, costly and taking longer than they thought. And they see the consequences played out in their jobs, in their shopping bills and in investment in the companies they work for. And they're worried.
Right. Madalena, you'll still have your birthday, even if you don't have anything else to celebrate next year.
No, we have to stop Brexit because the reality of Brexit is not going to live up to the lies that were promised. And not only that, you know, there's all this talk about democracy and how we have to respect the will of the people. Well, you know, there's a protest in Parliament this evening called for the Fair Vote because, you know, these whistleblowers have come out and called out the Leave campaign for misconduct, for cheating.
Illegal.
Well,
It's illegal.
on that,
Yeah.
actually, Nigel, is it important to abide by election rules? I mean, do the allegations
certainly
about
is.
vote leave, breaching spending rules, warrant a full investigation in the
First
interest
things
of
first,
democracy?
this all started with accusations about Cambridge Analytica harvesting data online. And they harvested in America mostly 50 million people's
But on that
pieces of
issue
data.
about breaching rules and democracy.
So have Cambridge Analytica broken the law? No, and there's been a lot of hysteria about this. By the way, if you sign up for the Guardian app...
You know that.
If you sign up for the Guardian app, you also sign up for your detail and your friends to be shared.
I think that's for the police to decide, Nigel, not you.
And Obama harvested 200 million
But Nigel,
pieces of
just on
data.
my
Totally
question, you've said
different.
it's important to abide by election rules.
Yes,
Does it warrant an investigation?
I agree. Why David Cameron was allowed to spend £9 million of our money putting a leaflet through every door, I
And
will
on the
never
vote leave
know.
side, should there be an
The
investigation?
donation was perfectly legal.
All right.
Is there a technical infringement on whether instructions were given? I don't know.
Can you promise us not to go skinny dipping this time?
No, I can't promise that.
And can
I
you
may
promise
well.
not to throw any more dead fish into the Thames?
Can you promise that once we get out of the common fisheries policy, we can put an ecologically sound system in place and be better for the environment as well as for our democracy?
Why didn't you say that when you should have turned up for the committee meeting?
Because it had no power, and that's the point. And the point is, and you can have your slogans about liberty, the point is, it is a fundamentally undemocratic union where the big bureaucrats are in charge, and that's what we voted against.
We have a seat
All
at
right.
the table. We'll be sitting outside the door.
And on this note, doesn't sound like much of a party, does it, at the moment with these two?
Well, I don't know. There's always some brawl at a party.
Or a wedding.
You're going to invite
It's going to be a raving party as far as I'm concerned. No, but, I mean, there has been 2 tribunals already, investigations into the vote leave stuff, and it's already been thrown out. So,
Well,
What
on
into
that,
the
and before
allegations
this
that
ends up
broke
as a
the
brawl, God forbid, I bid you goodwill. Goodwill, or goodbye, I should say.